Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Jason Buffington, and this is installment 145 for Industry Insights. So we're going to do something a little bit different today. And to set the groundwork and policy, two things. One, tell us where you're from. We're going to be bringing up the map in just a few minutes, and we'd love to find out where people are joining from today. You can see that, oh man, I always love it when Canada weighs in early. A big chunk of the world turns green. That's fantastic. It looks like we've also got my neighbor to the south in Mexico is also representing, and Panama as well. So thank you for that. I am hailing from the great state of Texas. Also covered is California. And Pennsylvania. We have production coming out of Georgia and Ohio, social media also coming out of Texas, and we have a guest joining from Florida, but I'm going to hold off on him for just a second. I think I saw there was a splash for a second. France was Europe also representing this afternoon, so thank you, or bonjour, as the case may be. So let's set up some groundwork. For the next 4 weeks, Veeam is inviting 4 of our Veeam Innovation Award winners. So every December, the process starts for both customers and for partners to talk about what kinds of great technology innovations and also what kinds of business outcomes are being delivered that are powered by Veeam technologies along the way. And that process goes from December all the way until May at Veeam On, when the 4 winners are announced along the way. And so we want to celebrate each of those 4 and highlight what are the technologies that won their awards this year. No surprise, a lot of the interest this year was around ransomware. So let me take you through one data point, which is it keeps us focused on ransomware as a problem. It's all over the news, and I think there's a reason why. If we take a look at the charts, one of the reports that came out earlier this year, the Data Protection Trends Report for 2023, asked the question, how many times has your organization been attacked by ransomware in the last 12 months? And you can see there's a spread here, and unfortunately, only 15% of respondents said they had not been hit by ransomware this year, meaning that 85% had. Now, the thing that I think is even worse than that is if we get rid of the 1, 2s, and 3s and just take a look at those folks who've been hit quarterly, 4 times or more throughout the year, the sad fact is more organizations actually got hit quarterly than think they didn't get hit at all. Right? That's the problem statement that we're dealing with today as far as the prevalence of ransomware. We're going to walk through that a little bit, but don't just take my word for it. Joining us today is Segi Brody, who's the Chief Technology Officer from Opti9. You can see there is a huge amount of logos that Opti9 has earned over time, along with the Veeam Innovation Award. And Segi, congratulations again for that. It's worth pointing out that while most organizations know Opti9 as one of our marquee cloud service providers offering BaaS and DRaaS solutions, Opti9 is also a technology alliance partner. And so they're actually taking their experience of what does it take to deliver Veeam services and said, there's some things that we need to do more. And so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of comes together. But Segi, welcome to the show. Congratulations on the VIA, and give us a little bit more lens on the breadth of what Opti9 does.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here, and thanks for the congratulations. That was an awesome accolade that we got the recognition for what we built with Observr. If you don't know Opti9, we are a Veeam cloud service provider. We are a platinum level. We provide managed backups as a service, managed disaster recovery as a service globally. We have facilities and data centers all over the world. But one of the things that we've been focused on over the last few years is really decoupling the value add of the tooling and the technology that we built, and the breadth of our managed services from being an infrastructure provider ourselves. And it really just speaks to where the industry is going. Everyone's interested in hybrid infrastructure. Folks are looking for vendors to meet them where they are. If they're planning on using a specific public cloud, they're looking for vendors to be able to provide services there. And so, most of the VCSPs, most of the cloud providers are really a mix of infrastructure and tooling and managed services. And what we've been doing over the last few years, and Observr is probably the best example, is saying you don't need to use our infrastructure. we are here to provide you, if you're looking to shift ownership and accountability to manage your backups, we can do that. We can provide managed services in a completely infrastructure agnostic way. And also, based on all the experience that we've had dealing with managing Veeam and dealing with ransomware attacks, we have built some pretty cool technology, and folks have asked us to make use of it, but maybe they don't need a different backup strategy, or maybe they're happy backing up to AWS or Wasabi, or that's not a problem they need solved right now. So we've decoupled the technology that we've built, made it available really for anybody in the world that just so happens to be running Veeam and is looking to solve some interesting problems related to security. And that's why we are a Veeam Technology Alliance partner from a pure standalone tech perspective. And that's why we built Observr and we're putting it out there.
So that part, I think, is going to be illuminating to a lot of folks. I mean, a lot of the logos that you have here, certainly on the traditional cloud side, you deliver BAS and DRAS for both on-prem infrastructure as well as 365 to normal subscribers, right? So that's the minimum for providing cloud greatness as BAS and DRAS. But you also deliver that through other partners, right? They can reskin and resell those kind of solutions. But I love the fact that in this case, we're going to be talking about the entire potential install base of Veeam as far as understanding where ransomware fits in. Let's talk specifically about that for a second. So again, we're going to revisit another data point from in this case, the ransomware trends report. Let me bring up that data for you. So one of the key statistics, this is becoming a really common play, at least according to the research, on did the bad actor try to target the backup repository as part of the cyber attack, right? And the data from 1,200 cyber victims in calendar 2022 said that that in 93% or more of cases, the repository was targeted. Now, let me this is kind of a blurry chart. You see on the red-hand side that most of the repositories got impacted. The orange says some of the repositories got affected. Let's break this down just a little bit, because unfortunately, not only did 93% get targeted, but in 75% of cases, those targets were successful. The bad actor does have a chance to affect the backup repository, which basically removes the victim's opportunity to save themselves, right, along the way. Now, as much as that 75% is kind of harsh to read, let's flip that over, because that means only 18% of the cyber victims actually said that the bad actor tried but was unsuccessful in affecting that backup repository. 18%. So that's basically 1 out of 6 ish along the way. And then there's 5% that we just don't know along the way. Second, this is data, right? So this is 1,200 victims from around the world, but this is something you breathe in and out, day in and day out. Talk about what your experience has been. What are your customers seeing, and what are your teams having to help manage through?
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly something that we've seen echoed in our interactions with customers over the last few years. Being a provider of just managed Veeam, just owning folks as Veeam, and in some cases just being a backup vendor, we've certainly gotten calls, mostly the ones that we're not managing, of, we just got ransomware and all our backups were deleted. Or we just got ransomware and we don't have a place to fail over to. We need help. And I think what's happening too is, and it's just the state of the industry, and is that there are just so many bad assumptions related to backups and disaster recovery and ransomware. The Office 365 backup data point is probably the best, but folks think I have backups, therefore I don't have to worry about ransomware, or I have a DR solution somewhere, I don't have to worry about ransomware. But absolutely, we're seeing this, and as you said, it makes sense. If you're the attacker and you are trying to get someone to pay you a ransom, once you breach their environment, you're going to do everything in your power to increase the likelihood of getting paid. And so deleting the backups and deleting any recourse to recovery, that makes sense as step one.
Yeah. So and I cannot reinvest enough. It's a global problem, right? So we're all seeing this along the way. Speaking of global, let's check out the map. A lot of folks have been weighing in. I've been watching the chatter on a couple different social media feeds. If we take a look at the U.S. to start off with, it looks like we've got a couple new states that have piled on. So Tennessee is representing. I see Connecticut. There's Kentucky is in the house. So good morning to all y'all on the East Coast. So thank you for that. Pop over to, let's do Europe. Looks like we got Germany in the house. UK is representing. Spain is there. Let's see, we can go down. Is that Colombia and Chile? Again, always cool when Colombia weighs in. There's a big old chunk of the world turns green again. And then if we go, let's say Africa. All right, so we got Mozambique, we got Nigeria. There's a lot of folks piloting. Ghana's in, Benin's in, Mauritius is in. I'm not sure I've had someone from Mauritius before, so and it's just fun to say. So again, welcome to everybody for that. Also, we've got looks like Iran, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia along the way. Wow. All right. So the world is turning green, one big chunk at a time. Thank you all for piling on. By the way, you got a real world expert on the call today. So if you have questions about what you're hearing today, please throw those in the chat, and Segi or I will try to answer those as we go through. Segi, one of the most interesting things that I learned from when you've talked before about real world experiences is let's talk about what does a cyber attack actually look like when it happens. And you provided us a couple work streams here. Now this is a fairly fine point, so hopefully folks have some big monitors for today. But can you walk us through the basic flow, what's going on here?
Yeah, sure. So this diagram comes from a report that we actually worked on with a cybersecurity firm called Cypress, who we engaged with to really better understand, what is the anatomy of a common ransomware attack. As I mentioned before, we were seeing so many of these attacks coming in that we wanted to figure out, like, what can we do? What can we do to help protect our customers? If our customers are coming to us to help manage backups, manage disaster recovery, obviously, security and prevention of ransomware is one of the goals. So how do we more actively engage with that and help protect them? And so understanding the anatomy of a common ransomware attack really is step one. And so what we found is really once an attacker gets into an IT environment, cloud environment, they are first doing sort of asset discovery. And what they're looking for, is typically they're looking for asset inventory systems, cloud configuration files, automated provisioning tools like Terraform. They're doing network scans, TCP/IP scans. And one of the things that they are specifically looking for is, backup and replication tools. Yep. And so, it is something, as you mentioned before, they know what the largest, they know the top 10 backup and replication softwares that are out there. They're trained on them. They go through VMCE training and all the other vendor training, and they know what ports are open. They know the OS signatures, and they are looking for these tools. Once they find one of these tools in the environment, obviously they will attempt to log into the tool. As you're definitely aware, a lot of folks are unfortunately using the similar credentials or have everything tied into a common AD. Right. And they get into your backup tool, and now they have administrative access, and now they can impose changes. And so again, if I'm going to go and ransomware an environment, it would behoove me not to get into the backup tool first and delete all of the backups. Or make other changes to sort of mitigate that. And so this is what we've been seeing. Going back to the piece about assumptions, I think a lot of people will think, well, I have immutability, therefore I'm good. I can ignore all this. And another interesting statistic regarding this ransomware attacks, as I'm sure you're aware, is how often are attackers within an environment before they're detected or before they initiate attack. And the answer is somewhere between typically 45 to 90 days. And what we've seen is attackers get in and disable jobs, reduce retention on jobs, remove VMs, disable backups, wait, and they can actually, in most cases, see what the immutability timers are set to, and they just wait them out, and then they initiate the attack. And so again, security is certainly something that needs to be multifaceted. You can't just say, oh, I have immutability, therefore I'm safe. I have a disaster recovery site, therefore I'm safe. Always has to be multi-layered. But this is what we see from a high level perspective.
Got it. And now there's a second workflow. So how do these two come together?
Yeah, so let's take a look at the next diagram. And what we thought about was, well, if the attackers are following a common work stream and they're doing, they're typically doing X, Y, and Z before they initiate a ransomware attack, then what if we can detect some of those suspicious activities? What if we can see changes being made within the backup environment before the ransomware attack is initiated? If we can detect that, then we could potentially notify administrators and stop the attack before it starts, right? And I think if you look at what a lot of ransomware type capabilities as they relate to backups work, especially with sort of other backup vendors, it's all designed to detect attacks that are already in progress or already happening. A lot of vendors are doing we'll do inline detection to tell you if your protected servers are being ransomware or were ransomware. What we're focused on here, is we're not looking at your workloads. We're looking at your backup environment. Because the actual backup environment, the backup software, the backup infrastructure, the repos, that is a new and emerging attack surface. It is under the microscope of the attackers, and they're focused on it. So we're focused on that, really the control plane, and we're using actually the tool we built, Observr, is using machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand what types of changes are normal for your site and what types of changes are suspicious. And so here you can see, again, a common workflow, and any of the boxes that are in blue are the types of activities that we detect. And so I'll walk you through it. Attacker gets into an environment. The first thing they probably do is they probably look for replication jobs. They find, and what a lot of people don't realize is that an attacker that gets into your local data mover, we're talking about Veeam, but it's the same for any technology, they get in, they can destroy your DR site in seconds. They can delete the entire DR site, all the remote replicas, and then they can disable your jobs. And so there is no such thing as immutability when it comes to disaster recovery. It just does not exist the way that replication has to work. So step one, they might destroy your DR site. Then they'll focus on your local backups. And some of the activities that we detect are folks disabling jobs, deleting jobs, changing retention settings, disabling encryption, disabling immutability. And really what we're doing is looking not only for the prevalence of these activities, but the frequency, the types of changes to basically impose a opinion that, hey, this is out of the ordinary for this site. And so that's kind of how Observr works.
Got it. Okay, so you mentioned a couple things, including machine learning, which just sounds ridiculously cool and perhaps even unattainable. And so I want to dig into that for a second. But before we do, I want to go back to the map. There's a couple new countries that got added on, and also we had a couple comments along the way for folks that have weighed in. And so let me scroll up to get to those. One of them is from Wakas, who talks about how does Veeam work with cyber recovery solutions and CyberSense Analyze and multi-storage. Well, certainly from a multi-storage perspective, whether it's NAS, we're treating it as a production workload, or whether you're talking about multi-storage from the backside, one of the fun parts about being software agnostic is that we don't care what's there. Now, depending on which storage vendors you have, we do have some extra integrations with snapping and rollbacks and those kinds of things. From a detection perspective, we continue to make innovations around embedding third-party detection technologies as part of the Veeam workstream, as part of the backup job, as part of the recovery workstream as well. One of the things I actually am a big fan of is when you leverage, say, managed backup services, they're going to use different kinds of detection technologies than what you might necessarily be running on site. And to me, that just makes all the sense in the world, so that they're having a second chance to catch what perhaps you haven't. Of course, if you're using Observr, maybe that isn't going to be as much of a challenge. We're going to see about that in just a minute. There was also a comment earlier from David around the company got hacked in 2021. David, you are not alone. In 2021, 76% of organizations said that they had suffered an attack. In 2022, 85%. So unfortunately, as an industry, we are going the wrong direction. It's worth pointing out. Those are both unbiased, blind, or actually double-blind surveys along that way. So not Veeam customers, not Veeam partners. All right. If we want, we can go ahead and pop to the map and take a look at what do we have as far as any new countries that weighed in. I did see that Brazil came in. I called it Colombia because the Texas education system did not do well for me earlier, and I jumped on it. But now almost all of South America is green, and so we're going to keep on working on that. So thank you for that along the way. And I think we had folks are pretty predominant in Europe. So with that, and Segi, if you've got your screen ready to go, you made some really cool ideas out there. Let's show it to the kids at home.
Let's do it. Yeah. So this is Observr. This is our Observr is a SaaS tool. It's web based, and it can connect to really any Veeam install anywhere in the world. It takes minutes to connect it to a Veeam install. It does not require a VPN or any networking. We actually use Veeam's proprietary SSL encrypted Cloud Connect protocol just to transfer data. It works regardless of where you're sending your backups to, or where your data is located. This is just simply a cloud-based SaaS tool. So once you're connected, you'll be able to come into the portal and start seeing data. And as I mentioned, here are some of the factors that Observr is looking for. It's monitoring your backup server configurations, and it's looking for changes that are being made. And so some of the activities that we're detecting are VMs that had all their local backups deleted, or jobs that were disabled or modified, or suspicious offsite backup size changes, jobs that had their encryption disabled. There's a long list of what we're looking for, and then we basically are detecting those. And let me change the time period to earlier this month, where I know we actually saw something on this demo account. And so all of that information is running through the threat detection, the machine learning, and we will create threat events when we think something suspicious is going on. And so let me drill down into a threat event. So here is a threat event. Observr believes that there is something suspicious happening because during this time period, we see events such as a job which had encryption disabled, a VM that had all of its offsite backups deleted, jobs were disabled, retention setting was modified, and so on. And all of the events have suspicious scores. How suspicious is this for your particular site? And so we basically create a threat event. This is a security tool. We are mapping what we're seeing to the MITRE attack framework. We're telling you what we're seeing in your backup environment. And more so, we're actually using something called Stix Taxi to show you what we're seeing. Here are the incidents related to this event. There were jobs disabled. This is what you should do to check to see what's going on with that. And the reason that we have all this information here is because this is meant to be fed into your SIM tool or your MDR tool. Another interesting statistic from your report, Jason, was that there is really a disconnect between backup infrastructure and security teams. And right. So Observr really is the bridge between your backup environment and your security tooling and your security teams. And I'll show you more in a minute. But basically, we think that there's an attacker in your environment. We created a threat. We are going to notify you. You can configure to be notified via email. You can say, I only want to be notified if there is a threat that has a suspicious score of 90 and above. Those will be sent via email. There's also the API. And there's this other really cool thing we can do, which is the air gap. As I mentioned before, when it comes specifically to disaster recovery, there is no such thing as immutability. An attacker gets into your environment, they can kill your DR site in seconds. And so one cool thing that Observr does is if we detect suspicious activity in your backup environment, you can have us automatically air gap your offsite disaster recovery or backup environment. You can do it manually with this big red scary button, or you can have it done automatically. And today we're supporting Cloud Connect providers for this. We're supporting Wasabi backups for this, and AWS backup too, because backups are also important. Regardless of immutability, you don't want someone to delete your 7 years historical backups. So we're doing the detection. Some people look at this and say, hey, that's great that you're using all these factors for threat detection, but I'm the only person who manages backups for my site. I want to know right away if someone disables encryption. So you can disable immediate alerting for all these types of events. It's fairly flexible. I'll also say that you can even drill down on all of your workloads, and from a forensics perspective, kind of see what happened when did we see changes, all of that. And I'd say one of the important things to realize about this tool is everything that you're seeing is stored in the cloud. If an attacker does get into a backup environment, they can delete all the logs. They can delete all the information. You can't do forensics. You can't go back in time and see what's going on. Because this is cloud-based, it is completely segmented from the local environment. And lastly, as I said a second ago, if you are using an MSSP for your security, or you're using a SIM or MDR, this will plug in directly. So if there's something else suspicious in your environment, that can initiate the air gap, or you can correlate what we see happening in your backup environment with everything else that's being seen with the rest of your environment.
Okay, I'm loving this. One of the things that I think is super interesting about what we're seeing here, and I know we got 3 minutes left, a couple last countries kind of piled back on, so I want to make sure we represent for those along the way and say hello to the friends that joined us. So if we bring the map back up for a second, one of the things, Segi, that I'm kind of hoping to lean in on, there was nothing about this that was necessarily cloud specific per se, right? So I love the fact that that all customers that are using VDR could add this within their capability set. So whether they're protecting workloads on premise, whether they're protecting Amazon and Azure and bringing that back to VBR, even 360. I mean, the idea being that once it lands within the Veeam data platform, grounded by our flagship product, you can simply add this as additional layers of instrumentation. Now, admittedly, Veeam 1 also does some instrumentation. So can you talk for just a second? By the way, the map is up, so I can make sure to give props to Sudan, who joined fairly late along the way. But can you walk us through in 60 seconds, where does this fit compared with Veeam's own monitoring services?
Sure, and I think you just shared basically what does a Veeam with Observr look like when you compare it to Veeam's competition, and obviously it fares pretty well there. But Veeam 1 is a great tool, but it is a generalized tool. Observr is a security only tool that is specifically designed to look for suspicious activity happening within your backup environment, not your VMs. There are great tools that are doing antivirus and ransomware detection in VMs, but there's nothing that's looking at the backup environment. And right. If the attackers are going after the backup environment first before initiating any other attacks, that's really just as important, and it needs to be a part of your multifaceted security strategy. And I'll say the fact that Observr is sitting on the outside looking in the cloud, and it's not part of Veeam, that is architecturally makes a lot of sense. Some other backup tools, they have some sort of ransomware notifications. Attackers know that. They know if they log into your backup tool and they shut it down or disable it, you're not going to get those alerts anymore. So it makes no sense. So we're sitting on the outside looking in. The data is stored in the cloud. It's being sent from us directly to you or your security vendor. And it is, focused on that control plane. We even send RPO notifications from this platform. If your VMs aren't backed up, in a certain period of time, and there's a slew of other alerts, that again, it makes sense. Why would you use a tool to tell you when that tool itself is broken? So, strategically, we believe Observr, it just really helps folks sleep better at night. The automated air gap certainly helps with your strategies too.
Yep. Got it. And you can see a list provided by Opti9 as far as looking at how Observr complementing Veeam compares with some of the competition of folks that are trying to address different kind of things on non-Veeam, non-Observr empowered solutions. In fact, all those oranges and reds, that's probably why we had a troll on one of our live stream feeds earlier today, because they're afraid of the reds and the oranges. All right. Hey, we got about 30 seconds left. So we did cite some data as part of the report. So if you want to see the rest of the research data, you can hit that QR code on the right-hand side, or just go to vee.am/RW23. Sagi, every time that we connect, I learn something from you, and this was not enough time. And so we actually do have a webcast planned to really talk more about some of those strategies, dig more into your capabilities as well, powered by that Veeam platform underneath it. And so Thursday, September 21st, please make sure to hit the QR code down below and register for that event as well. Cannot say enough again. Congratulations on the VIA. Thank you for being a VCSP, a TAP partner, and my guest for today. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, and to everyone else, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this segment. For the next 3 weeks, we'll be looking at other VIA solutions. It's going to be hard to top this one, but we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching.